To watch on Parliament Live TV. We start with questions to the Prime Minister. Dean Russell.
Question 1, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I've been asked to reply on behalf of my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister. The House will know he's travelling in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, to discuss energy security, diplomatic action on Russia and Ukraine, and regional issues, including Iran. Mr. Speaker, with your forbearance, may I also say that I understand that 4 members of the Ukrainian Parliament are here with us in the gallery today. And I'm sure I speak for the whole House in saying that we stand in total solidarity with you.
Camelot is one of the largest employers in Watford and for Watford, and its employees have worked tirelessly to successfully run the National Lottery for decades. They play an important role in communities across the UK, many local projects and good causes, including in my constituency. So whilst I obviously declare an interest in the Gambling Commission's decision yesterday not to appoint the licence to Camelot, I do wonder, given the current situation in Ukraine, if my right honourable friend considered it appropriate that the next licensee of the operator of the National Lottery is known to have a joint venture with Gazprom.
Can I thank my honourable friend and just say what an incredible job the National Lottery has done, delivering £45 billion to good causes. He's right, the 4th licence will ensure operator profits are better aligned with returns to good causes. Can I just also say on the specific points he makes, I understand that Alwyn's owner, Mr. Komarak, who's long criticised the Putin regime, is in discussions with the Czech Republic government regarding the joint venture with Gazprom and removing its involvement.
We now come to the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Angela Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I also welcome Ukrainian MPs to this House today. And Mr. Speaker, can I start by wholeheartedly welcoming the positive steps towards returning Nazardine Zaghari-Ratcliffe and Anusha Ashuri to the UK. I'm sure members across the House want to show their support for their families and them. I know the Minister would agree that this devastating situation must never be repeated, and other British nationals still trapped in Iran need to be brought home. So will the Minister commit to a review of these cases to understand what more could have been done by the British government to secure releases, and whether the lazy comments of the Prime Minister worsened the situation?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I first of all say that I can't yet confirm the reports we've seen in the media, but of course it feels like positive signs, and of course no one wants more than me, but I'm sure all members of the House, to see Nazanin, but also all of the arbitrarily detained nationals reunited with their loved ones. I can tell the Honourable Lady, having worked for 2 years with the concerted diplomatic effort led by the Prime Minister, that we have done absolutely everything we can. She shouldn't give succor to the despotic regime that detained our nationals in Iran or around the world by suggesting it's anyone else's responsibility other than theirs.
Angela Rayner.
Mr. Speaker, it's exactly for that reason that I asked for the review, that it's important to learn from our mistakes so we don't end up with other innocent families facing this ordeal again. So I hope the Minister will consider my comments. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank all of the people who have been working tirelessly to bring British nationals home from Iran, our diplomatic staff and our world-leading British intelligence agencies. The role of the British intelligence today is critical in the face of Putin's aggression. The Deputy Prime Minister oversaw our foreign intelligence services as Foreign Secretary. So can he confirm if at any time he overruled or ignored direct advice from the British security services?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Can I say to the Honourable Lady, what she suggests is nonsense. She's talking about the House of Lords Appointments Commission. They have a vetting process. I have never overruled intelligence advice, and I wouldn't comment on the details of it. What I would say and would agree with her on the strength, the agility of the British diplomatic service, which time and time again are the unsung heroes in returning British nationals, often less celebrated cases than this. But I think now is a great opportunity to recognise the heroic work they do.
Absolutely, I agree with the Minister regarding his comments on their heroic work. The Right Honourable Member was Foreign Secretary on the 17th of March 2020, when British intelligence reportedly warned against a grant and a peerage to the Prime Minister's close friend and now Lord Lebedev of Hampton and Siberia. 48 hours later, the Prime Minister visited Lebedev at his home in London. Details of that meeting have never been released. In July 2020, Lebedev's appointment as peer was announced. So can he tell the House what changed between the security warning and the appointment?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Sorry, the Honourable Lady knows full well all individuals nominated for a peerage have done so in recognition of what their contribution is to society. And I should say, that includes those of Russian origin who contribute brilliantly to our nation, many of whom in this country are critics of the Putin regime. Live peerages are vetted by the House of Lords Appointments Commission for matters of probity, and frankly, I think she should know better.
Angela Rayner.
Mr. Speaker, what I do know better is the central duty of any government is to keep the British people safe. There are now widespread reports that the Prime Minister did not accept warnings from our own intelligence services, granting a Russian oligarch, the son and business partner of a KGB spy, a seat here in this Parliament. It shouldn't matter if such a warning was about a close personal friend of the Prime Minister. It shouldn't matter if he gave the Prime Minister thousands of pounds of gifts, and it shouldn't matter how much champagne and caviar he serves. There's no ifs or buts when it comes to the safety of the British people. So I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, can he guarantee that the Prime Minister never asked anyone to urge the security services to revise, reconsider or withdraw their assessment of Lord Lebedev of Hampton and Siberia?
Deputy Prime Minister.
The suggestion she's making is sheer nonsense. But if she wants to talk about national security, then I remind her that she and her shadow cabinet colleagues not so long ago wanted the Honourable Member for Islington North. Mr. Speaker, a man who wanted and talked about abolishing the army, pulling out of Trident, she voted for that. Has there ever been a more ridiculous, reckless, naive moment to call for unilateral nuclear disarmament and pulling out of NATO? A Labour government would put at risk our security. We're doing everything we can to protect it.
Angela Rayner.
To veto. And may I remind the Deputy Prime Minister that it was his Prime Minister in 2015 that said he wasn't sure if it was morally irresponsible to work with Putin. So I don't think he's on safe grounds there. Last week, Mr. Speaker, my right honourable friend, the Leader of the Opposition, said that Britain should never again be at the mercy of a foreign dictatorship for our energy and fuel security. This week, the Prime Minister has gone cap in hand from one dictator to another on a begging mission to the Saudi prince to bail him out. Mr. Speaker, the government have had 12 years to end their reliance on foreign oil and invest in homegrown energy to secure our supplies. Their failure has left us all vulnerable, reliant on another murderous dictator to keep the lights on and pumps open.
I'm going to hear this question. If some people don't want... Somebody wants to make a political argument, I'm more than happy, because we can argue outside when you're there. But for the moment, I need to get on. I want to hear the question. Councillor Rayner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government benches have a choice. They could accept Labour's plan to save working families hundreds of pounds on bills funded with a one-off levy on the soaring profits of big energy companies. So I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, is their only plan to keep on begging?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, can I just gently say to the Honourable Lady that when she was campaigning, as the rest of them were, to make the Honourable Member for Islington North Prime Minister, this Prime Minister was Foreign Secretary leading the response to the nerve agent attack.
I hate to say it, you can't keep going back to 12 years as the defensive mechanism. What we want to do, I'll decide, thank you. What I want you to do, Deputy Prime Minister, please, if we can try and stick to the general, have a lot of people ahead of it who are desperate to get in, without talking about history. How far we want to go back is one thing in passing. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When she was...
Sir Desmond, he is not responsible for the opposition supporters. This is about the government. This is about questions to the Deputy Prime Minister. I'll put the questions and decide which to write. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted just to point out, and I hope it's not ancient history, that the Prime Minister was, as Foreign Secretary, galvanising the response to the nerve agent attack in Salisbury at the time where the honourable member, the former leader of the Labour Party, was siding with Putin against the UK. What did the Honourable Lady have to say on Sky News? He's a very strong leader. She can't wait for him to become Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there is a war in Europe. There is a fuel energy crisis in Britain. Democracy is at risk. We must support the courageous efforts of President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people. These uncertain times require leadership with integrity. A leader that works with the security services, can be trusted to say the right thing for British diplomacy and provide security for the British people. Instead, Mr. Speaker, we have this sorry excuse of a government sat before us. They hike tax on 27 million working people while the super rich increase their wealth. They watch energy prices rise by over 50% while the companies enjoy profits they didn't even expect. And they cavort with Russian oligarchs in luxury villas while neglecting the security of the British people. And remember, Mr. Speaker, they partied while the country was in lockdown and were unable to see their dying loved ones. Can the Deputy Prime Minister look the British people in the eye and really say this government is doing their best in their interest?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what this government, this Prime Minister have done. 1,000 Russian individuals sanctioned, a combined wealth $45 billion. The impact of the sanctions and the diplomatic effort that this Foreign Secretary and this Prime Minister have led, the ruble plummeting, the Russian stock market at record lows, double the interest rates. We've also showed, Mr. Speaker, the big-hearted spirit of this government and indeed this nation, with the 5,500 visas granted to Ukrainians to come here, and also the humanitarian route, which has now got 100,000 sponsors applying to come to take Ukrainian families in these homes. While she's in her social media echo chamber, that's what this government is doing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was very good to see my right honourable friend visit the International Criminal Court earlier this week, but they have enduring difficulties with funding. Last year, they had a $40 million shortfall in their budget because some participating states failed to meet their annual contribution. The International Criminal Court is only as good as the sum of its parts. So what steps can the government take to secure contingency funding to ensure that one day Russian military commanders in Ukraine can expect to stand trial for war crimes?
My honourable friends, bang on. The Assembly of States Party is looking at the arrears. I was in The Hague on Monday speaking to the prosecutor and the president of the court. We will be coming forward with a voluntary package of financial and technical support, because now, as they look at the situation in Ukraine, we want, and I think the whole House would want, Putin and his commanders to know if they continue with war crimes in Ukraine, they'll end up not just in the dock of the court, but behind bars.
We now come to the leader of the SNP, Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I welcome our four colleagues from the Parliament of Ukraine who are with us today? We all stand with them. Mr. Speaker, I've spent much of the last week trying to help the Scottish charity, Nipro Kids, established by Friends of Hibernian Football Club, who've evacuated 48 children from orphanages in Ukraine and are desperately attempting to provide them with temporary sanctuary in Scotland. Mr. Speaker, there is a plane ready and waiting in Poland to bring these orphans to the UK on Friday. But that flight will leave empty without the necessary paperwork from the Home Office. The Polish authorities, Edinburgh City Council, the Scottish Government and the Orphans Guardian are all working to bring these children to safety. I've worked with UK government ministers to try and make this happen, and I want to commend Lord Harrington in particular for his effort. But a week on, the Home Office is still proving to be the only obstacle in the way, and it risks leaving these children stranded. So I'm pleading with the Deputy Prime Minister, remove these obstructions before it's too late. Will he work with me and the Ukrainian authorities to guarantee that these 48 Ukrainian orphans will get on that plane this Friday?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for all he's doing? This is a heartrending situation. We want to do everything we can. Of course, there are a range of issues in this case, including the wishes of the Ukrainian government on where orphan children should go and should be living, whether any necessary permission to be sought from the Ukrainian and or Polish government. This isn't actually about bureaucracy, it's about genuine safeguarding, and I certainly want to work with him in the best interest of those children.
Ian Blackford.
I'm asking the government to do just exactly that, because we've been working with the Ukrainian and Polish authorities. We have their support. We need the Home Office to give us the paperwork that will make that happen. Because, Mr. Speaker, this one case goes to the heart of the failure in the UK government's response to the biggest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. It is deeply concerning that it's taken the intervention of several ministers of state, letters to multiple European ambassadors, and the fear of this case being exposed in the chamber to try and force movement in an urgent case involving almost 50 vulnerable children. Even where there is the will, it seems that simply there is no way that the Home Office can get involved. I shouldn't have been sending letters to the authorities in Ukraine and Poland. The Home Office should have been doing it. If all these powerful people can't make it happen, what hope do all the other children fleeing this awful war have of finding sanctuary in the UK? The United Nations are now estimating that almost 1 child a second is becoming a refugee in the war in Ukraine. These 48 children will not be the last who need sanctuary and safety. Surely the Deputy Prime Minister agrees that shouldn't have taken this level of intervention and pressure for the Home Office to do the right thing by these children.
Minister.
Can I just say to him, it's very important that the proper international practice on safeguarding followed. I know he appreciates that. We're keen to find out if family reunion options with Ukrainian family in the region have been considered. We also know, can you just listen for a second, because it's important. We also know that many children in state care in Ukraine have family members in the region for safeguarding and well-being of the children. That must also be considered. More broadly, he raises the issue about refugees and children on top of the measures that I've already mentioned. We're making plans for the arrival of 100,000 Ukrainian children through the education sector in our schools. And I pay tribute to the health secretary for bringing Ukrainian children suffering from cancer over to this country to receive the vital treatment they need.